This is a quick update to my 2021 video, 1 Rubik's Cube 100 Mountains. Shortly after this video came out, some people used publicly available LiDAR data to analyze each peak and come up with a more accurate list of the top 100 highest peaks in Colorado, which I was trying to solve Rubik's Cube on top of each one of. There were 3 peaks that were removed from the list. That includes Challenger Point here, which was determined no longer to be an official peak because its prominence, or the vertical distance from its summit down to this saddle with a nearby higher peak, was determined to only be 264 feet, rather than the 300 that's normally required to be considered a peak in Colorado. Second off, we have Dallas Peak. It was actually measured to be a little bit higher at 13,812 feet, but there are so many other peaks that were also measured to be higher that it dropped out of the top 100 down to 104. And finally, we have Tea Kettle Mountain, which is the same story. It was measured to be 13,815 feet, which also puts it just out of the top 100 at number 102. Now, fortunately, there's a popular 14,000 foot mountain that replaced Challenger Point. That's North Maroon Peak. Basically, the exact opposite thing happened to it. They realized it had 329 feet of prominence, which is more than enough to be considered an official peak, and good for me, I had already been there and solved Rubik's Cube on top of it. Now, as for these other two, they were replaced with some random peaks that were right on the edge of being in the top 100, so number 99 is now Arrow Peak, which I had been to the top of before, but I had not solved Rubik's Cube on it, and number 100 is now Trinity Peak, which I had never been to the top of at all. So the reason for this video is that 3 years later, I have finally rectified that and solved this very cube on top of those 2 remaining peaks, plus of course that one that I did earlier, which means we can now ignore the 3 solves from these 3 peaks that are no longer in the top 100 and instead replace them with the following. $12.65. $15.98. $12.28.